Hi, welcome to this episode of White Glove Geography. Today we're looking at the Changing Economic World section in the AQA Geography course, specifically about the NEE country of Brazil, the 6 and 9 mark questions, and we're looking at the effects of economic development upon the environment and the effects of economic development upon quality of life of people in the country. Two exam questions we're going to look at today are: to what extent is it possible to reduce the environmental impact of economic development? And you should refer to an LIC or NEE that you have studied. Next is evaluate the effect that a TNC has had upon the quality of life for people in LICs or NEEs. Here's an information page. There's 4 of these today. Here's an information page of what you should have studied. If you haven't got the booklet, pause here and have a look through the information. All of the questions will refer to the information on this and the subsequent 3 pages. Here's the next page. Pause here if you've not yet studied this. Here's page 3. If you've not studied this, pause here. Here's page 4. If you've not studied this, pause here. So, assessment objectives. AO1, AO2, AO3. AO1 is knowing a good geography, so stuff. So data, examples, geography words, place names. AO2 is understanding the stuff. So can you explain it using phrases like, this means that, this results in, and knock-on effect of this is due to. AO3, can you make a decision about your understanding? That will typically be in your conclusion, but also might be mini conclusions at the end of peel paragraphs. Use words like significant, important, effective, successful. As we saw, our first question is a to what extent question, and for this one you're going to get into that kind of grey area. You're not going to go for one side of the argument, you're not going to go for the other side of the argument, you're going to get that grey area where you're going to look somewhere close to the middle, but not the exact middle. The structure, you're going to support what you're saying in your first peel paragraph, then you're going to support again what you're saying with a different statement. Then your third peel paragraph, look at the opposite point of view, acknowledge there's a different argument going on. Somebody else might think something different. Then, crucially, write your conclusion. Feel free to use the multi-tool structure if you're not very confident on the extended questions. The multi-tool structure looks like this. It's based on the evaluate section. So the multi-tool structure, if you're confused about the words assess, explain, evaluate, to what extent, justify, just use this structure and you'll be absolutely fine. It won't get you top marks, however what it will do will get you a good way towards it. So to what extent is it possible to reduce the environmental impacts of economic development? You should refer to an LIC, NEE that you've studied. This is basically about manufacturing industries in a country. They can have a negative, sometimes a positive, impact upon the environment. To what extent? Is it a small extent? Is it a large extent? You decide. So the economic development, so jobs, opening of factories, things related to trade and business. Does that affect the environment? So natural things, habitats, plants, animals, for example, pollution maybe. You're going to look at a LIC, NE that we've studied. Ours is Brazil. And of course, the 9 mark question, you're going to look at geography words, data, examples, place names, and develop your answers with a conclusion. Here's your structure. Pause here to glance through to see what you should be writing in each one of your paragraphs. This follows the same structure as the to what extent slide. This is roughly the amount of space you'll have to answer your question. Get straight in there because there's not a lot of space here. And as ever, the mark scheme, level 1 is basic, level 2 is clear, level 3 is detailed. There's a little bit more detail on each one of these on here, so if you want to pause to see what you're heading towards, pause here. Now, as we've previously said about some of our answers, we've probably given you a little bit too much information just to show you the range of things that you could include. You could probably quite happily take out maybe 1 of the 2 of these paragraphs and you'd still be absolutely fine. This just shows you what you could include. So, to a large extent, I believe that economic development of Brazil has caused environmental impacts. Firstly, it could be argued that Brazil has gained most of its economic development through the switch from selling primary goods such as iron ore to secondary goods, so manufactured car parts. This change has involved many factories to open, such as the JLR factory. However, the knock-on effect of the increase of the factories has led to increased pollution and also the release of CO2 in Brazil. This is significant as the increase in pollution has been linked to many deaths across Brazil. Secondly, a large amount of deforestation occurs across the Amazon rainforest, which is about 750,000 kilometers squared per year. That's to support the extraction of iron ore and the creation of cattle ranches. A knock-on effect of this deforestation is that about 100 billion tonnes of carbon will not be removed from the atmosphere per year. Therefore, it adds to climate change and increased pressure on the environment of species. Further to this, the extraction of iron ore leads to large toxic waste spills, such as that in November 2015, when a dam burst and it released 62 million meters cubed of toxic waste. A knock-on effect of the environmental impact was that all the fish within the Dulce River were killed. This is important as many species of fish would have been lost. This could also have impacted the ecosystems and food chains in the area. Also, this could have added pressure to food sources in the area. However, some people may argue that economic development outweighs the environmental cost. For example, TNCs such as JLR created 300 skilled jobs. This leads to increased tax paid to the Brazilian government, which could then be invested in services such as education and improved access to healthcare. In conclusion, to a large extent, I believe the economic development of Brazil has huge environmental impacts. I believe in the short term, the most significant impact is the toxic waste released in the extraction of iron ore. However, I believe in the longer term, the biggest impact will come from the increase in pollution as more factories open up to support the increased sales of secondary manufactured goods. Here we've got AO1, AO2, AO3 is identified, so pause here to see those. And you can see here we've got the introduction, the negative peel paragraph. So here we're saying we don't think the economic development has been good for the environment, so 2 negatives. However, there's an opposing opinion, and then the conclusion. We've got the assessment objectives introduced in the second question here. I'm not going to go through these in detail. Pause if you want to look through them again. So the command word for the second question is evaluate, and this is the same as the multi-tool structure. So introduce, give a positive, give a negative, and make a final decision. And in there, your conclusion is going to be words significant, important, effective, successful. Feel free to use the multi-tool structure, but actually it is the same as evaluate. So here we are, we can see it's the same as evaluate. So evaluate the effects that a TNC has had upon the quality of life of people in LICs and NEEs. So evaluate, present the key points, look at the positives, look at the negatives, reach a conclusion. A TNC, that's going to be JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, has had upon the quality of life. So that might be healthcare, it might be education. It's how people live their lives, their daily life. Is it good? Is it bad? What are the effects of the TNC on that? And our NE is Brazil. Of course, geography words, data, examples, place names, develop your answer and write a conclusion. Here we've got your outline, your introduction, paragraph 1, paragraph 2 and conclusion. So introduction, name the LIC or NE, it's going to be Brazil. Name your TNC, it's going to be Jaguar Land Rover or JLR. Paragraph 1, state the positives of the TNC. Paragraph 2, state some negatives of the TNC. And then your conclusion, do you think overall it had a positive or a negative impact upon your country? That's the kind of space you will be allowed for this, so not a lot of space. Get straight in there, answer your question. Level 1, as ever, limited development. Level 2, you're going to give some kind of clear development. You're going to give several points, and level 3 is a detailed argument. So here's a possible answer. We realise that there's a little bit too much here to fill in your gaps. Again, it's just to give you an idea of the kind of spread of information you might want to include. So pick the things out that you think you could most confidently write about. When a country undergoes economic development, the hope is that it then influences the change in quality of life, therefore meaning the general well-being of a country is improved. As Brazil has undergone economic development, it has attracted the investment of TNCs such as Jaguar Land Rover or JLR. This had a positive and a negative impact upon Brazil. With the investment from JLR, a factory which manufactures car parts was opened, this created 300 skilled jobs. A knock-on effect of this was increased tax was paid to the Brazilian government. This then leads to a positive multiplier effect. For example, the tax collected could be invested in services such as healthcare, therefore improving people's quality of life. As well as investing in factories, JLR also established the Education Business Partnership Centre. A knock-on effect of this establishment meant that 12,000 children had access to classroom activities linked to JLR. This was important as it benefited both JLR and also local people. It offered education for locals, built the skills of a set of potential future workforce for JLR. However, some argue that not all is positive from the investments made by JLR. The head offices and TNCs are located in their home country. For example, JLR head office is located in the UK. A knock-on effect of this is that important decisions are often made outside the host country of Brazil. It can also lead to profits being made by the TNC and that's being sent out to the host country, so from Brazil back to the UK. This is important as it could lead to reduced investment in the development of services within Brazil. In conclusion, I believe the investment of TNC such as JLR has had a positive impact on the quality of life for locals in Brazil. I believe the most significant impact is JLR's investment in the Business Education Partnership Centre. That improves access to education and therefore in the long term improves adult literacy rates. Here we've got the AO1s, AO2s and AO3s. And here you can see there's an introduction, PL1, PL2 and a conclusion.